A major breakthrough has been achieved in the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. This after the Rafah crossing opened for the first time on Wednesday and hundreds of foreign nationals and injured people were allowed to evacuate from Gaza.
This has definitely been a big sign of relief, at least for those who are stuck in Gaza, at least the foreign nationals. The brief glimmer of hope quickly faded away, though, as Israeli strikes hit the Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza for the second time. Now, in the latest, Israel says it has killed another Hamas commander as it attacked the densely populated Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza for the second time on Wednesday. The first strike on the camp on Tuesday killed at least 50 people.
And now the IDF says that it has killed the head of Hamas's anti-tank missile unit in the second strike. Meanwhile, Hamas says at least 195 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli attacks on the camp so far, and 120 are missing, and at least 777 more are injured. United Nations, it's reacted, saying that Israeli attacks on the Jabalia camp could amount to war crimes.
These satellite images on your screen that we'll be showing you next show the scale of the devastation that has been caused at the campsite after the Israeli attacks. Take a look at this.
While Israeli strikes continue, around 335 foreign nationals and 76 injured were able to evacuate from Gaza on Tuesday to Egypt. This is the first evacuation from Gaza since the war began, as the Rafah crossing opened for the very first time. The evacuations were secured under a deal brokered between Egypt, Israel and Hamas with Qatar's mediation efforts.
Now, on the other hand, US President Joe Biden has said that the evacuation was the result of intense American diplomacy, as he thanked regional partners for the release of US citizens.
Now, day 26 of the war saw intense battles between Israel and Hamas as Israel continued its relentless pounding of Gaza.
Images from southern Israel show an Israeli army helicopter firing a machine gun, launching a rocket and flares over the Gaza Strip. Now, the Israeli military said its forces had struck about 300 targets over the past day, including anti-tank missile and rocket launch posts below tunnel shafts, as well as underground Hamas military compounds.
Amidst this, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has said that Hamas has to die or to surrender unconditionally, and there is no third option.
Meanwhile, Hamas has shown resistance. It released a video showing what it described as an anti-armor shells fired towards Israeli tanks and vehicles in Gaza.
Meanwhile, international diplomacy is also in full swing. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will begin his West Asia tour. Amid the war on Friday, he will visit Israel and Jordan. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin also met his Saudi counterpart in Washington, and the Israel-Hamas war dominated the talks. The Saudi Defense Minister also met Antony Blinken.
Now, in other updates, viewers, Jordan has recalled its ambassador to Israel. This an expression of Jordan's position rejecting and condemning the Israeli war raging in Gaza. Israel has responded by saying that it regrets the Jordanian government's decision. Earlier, Chile, Colombia also recalled their ambassadors to Israel, while Bolivia announced that it was cutting diplomatic ties with Israel.
Now, for more on this, to discuss this further, joining us on this broadcast live from Monterey, we have Professor James A. Russell. He's an associate professor in the Department of National Security at the Naval Postgraduate School. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA. Now, sir, to begin with, Antony Blinken, as I mentioned, will begin his West Asia tour, visiting Israel and Jordan. His visit this time has very few pit stops in the region, as compared to the previous, of course, the previous visit just a few weeks ago. Is it because of Israel's actions in Gaza? And what impact do you think this visit will have on the situation on ground?
I think that the situation by the itinerary by Blinken reflects the sort of reality of the circumstance that has been created by the war, which has turned the war into a global political phenomenon. It's an example, I would say, of an organization like Hamas, which is fighting the war at the strategic level, in which this is a war of the weak against the strong, And they realize that the only way they can prevail is to elevate their actions to the strategic level and to try to create global political effect, which they are creating. And it seems to me that Secretary Blinken's itinerary is reflecting this. He's going around West Asia to talk to his counterparts to deal with the global political fallouts that are being created by the war, which are going to continue, I might add.
Professor Russell, also wanted to take your opinion and your thoughts on this. Why is Hamas now holding foreign nationals as hostages when they're allowing a free passage to foreign nationals with foreign passports? And there were reports earlier that Hamas had stated that they do not need the hostages anymore. So what's their thought behind this?
I don't have a window into the Hamas decision-making, a framework.
I'm just taking your opinion on it.
I don't think anybody does, of course, except Hamas. What I would say, though, about it is, again, that the use of the hostages, it seems to me Hamas recognizes that these hostages are vehicles to something else. And what is that something else? That something else is global political attention. Now, we can all sit here as reasonable people and say, well, that's not the kind of attention that they really want. But if you're in the position of Hamas, and you think about it in this way, that every time that you are placed on news shows talking about hostages, you're again elevating the visibility of your issue to the global level. It's what I talked about earlier. They're fighting this war at the strategic level, a war of the weak against the war of the strong. Hamas can't win this war militarily. They know that, right? So they are using these vehicles, these instruments available to them to fight the war at the strategic political level, which I said in my previous comment, I think they've done so successfully.
All right. Thank you so much for joining in on the broadcast, sir. That was Professor Russell joining in and sharing all your insights on this with us right here on World DNA.
My pleasure. Thank you.